Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at Bob McKenzie's newly released and final NHL 2023 draft rankings. A week ago, I made a video about Craig Button's draft rankings, and today we're going to be doing the same thing, and we're going to look at Bob McKenzie's top 10. I'm also going to be comparing it to how I created my own top 10, so if you didn't see that video, go ahead and check that out. Now, just before getting into the video as well, I am pretty sure that Bob McKenzie's list is basically a combination or a mix-up of other NHL scouts' draft rankings. You know, he kind of puts them together, takes the average or whatnot, and that's how he comes up with his own draft ranking list. So, let's get right into his top 10. Something special to see here about Bob McKenzie is that his number one overall pick is usually pretty spot on. I mean, this year, there's no question, he has listed Conor Bedard, and that is most likely going to be correct unless somebody galaxy brains this and just does something stupid. Conor Bedard will be going first overall, and Bob McKenzie will once again get that first overall selection correct. And what I mean about him always getting the first overall right is that last year, everyone had Shane Wright going first overall, and as we got closer to the draft night, people were putting Juraj Slafkovsky, and he came out with his final listing and put Juraj Slafkovsky first overall, and that's when us Habs fans knew we might be selecting Slafkovsky over Wright, and look at that, he was right. And like I mentioned, this year's a lot easier for him to predict, and I don't think he's going to be wrong with this one either. So first overall, Conor Bedard, not bad so far. Now let's go into his second overall pick, and he has the Anaheim Ducks taking Adam Fantilli. Now, this is just what I predict as well. I think he's going to be correct with this one. But as of late, there has been some discussions surrounding the Anaheim Ducks and how they might take a swing at the next possible Russian superstar in Matvei Michkov. Now, there's no possible way to tell if this is true or not until next week. But if I were to put my money on one player, I do have the Anaheim Ducks taking Adam Fantilli, just as Bob McKenzie has listed here. And now we're going to move on to who he has at number 3, and he has Leo Carlsson. I've mentioned this in other videos. I think Leo Carlsson is going to be a third overall pick, but there might be some people who think he should go in second overall, and some people also think there's a real chance he might slip to fifth overall. So far, there hasn't been anything crazy. Bob McKenzie has a pretty accurate list so far as of what we're expecting to see, and we're going to continue on that track because Bob McKenzie has Will Smith fourth overall. Now, Will Smith will be a top 5 pick unless something major happens in this next week. So putting him at fourth overall is a pretty good spot. You know, he might go fifth, but I think number 4 is right where he will be selected. And now moving on to the fifth overall pick, in which us Habs fans are really excited to see. Bob McKenzie has the Montreal Canadiens taking Matvei Michkov fifth overall. Now that does sound like some pretty good news for Habs fans. I mean, we're all so deprived of a superstar up front, and Matvei Michkov is what pretty much the whole fan base wants. Despite a few people, but you know, the overall fan base would love for Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton to take a swing at Matvei Michkov if he is available. So let's cross our fingers and hope that Bob McKenzie's list is as accurate as it seems. And now, moving on to the sixth overall pick, he has Ryan Leonard going to the Arizona Coyotes. And this pick, you know, it makes sense, but it's not where a lot of people have Ryan Leonard going. It seems like Ryan Leonard is either going to be taken fifth overall or probably 7th or 8th. I don't really see the Arizona Coyotes taking him. Most other scouts have a defenseman like David Reinbacher being selected 6th overall, or maybe even Matvei Michkov. That's who I put by the Arizona Coyotes. And my reasoning was simple. The Coyotes have nothing to lose. Might as well take a swing at Matvei Michkov if he is available. So I'm not really sure if Ryan Leonard is going to go 6th overall. But hey, I could be completely wrong. I'm not going to say Bob McKenzie is wrong, but it's not where I expect Ryan Leonard to go. Now we're going to be taking a look at the 7th overall pick, in which Bob McKenzie has Dalibor Dvorsky. It's honestly not a bad pick. I had Dalibor Dvorsky going 8th overall, so 7th overall is not a bad spot for him, and it's a very realistic area for Dalibor Dvorsky to get selected. Man, this whole video is just me basically agreeing with Bob McKenzie. It feels really weird after making that Craig Button video, where I was just surprised pick after pick. So go check that out again if you haven't seen it already. But yeah, 7th overall, Bob McKenzie has Dalibor Dvorsky, and it's a pretty solid area to be selecting the young Slovak. Moving on to the 8th overall pick, he has the Washington Capitals taking the first defenseman of the draft, David Reinbacher. I think David Reinbacher is a huge wild card. A lot of people are even putting him in the top 6, and a lot of people have him barely fitting in the top 20. He's a pretty solid defenseman, but just the lack of top right-handed defenseman in this year's draft, or just defenseman at all, is very shocking compared to last year. In last year's draft, there was a handful of defensemen that were picked in the top 10, and this year it seems like there might only be one, and that will be David Reinbacher from what it seems. I personally don't believe he is a top 10 pick this year because of all the star forwards, and I think he's only going to be going top 10 because the defensemen are not as strong as previous years. But anyways, enough of that rant. David Reinbacher going 8th overall. I think that's pretty realistic, and I don't have any problem with that. And now we're diving into the 9th overall pick, in which I finally have a bit of concern and a bit of questions here. Bob McKenzie has the 9th overall pick being used to select Zach Benson. And honestly, that's just too low for me. Zach Benson is a top 6 player in this draft. And well, if you get him at 9, that is an absolute steal. It's not as bad as Craig Button, who had him listed 14th overall, which is one of the only scouts to put him out of the top 10. But number 9 is still a little too low for me, and I personally had him 5th overall, assuming Matvei Michkov does not go top 5. Now, it's pretty realistic that Zach Benson does fall just because of his size, but if we're looking at skill and overall players, Zach Benson should not go anywhere above the top 6. And now we're finally going to close out the top 10. Bob McKenzie has Gabe Perot at his number 10 spot. And this is another one that I'm pretty darn surprised about here. I mean, not to take away any credit from Gabe Perot, he had an extremely good year, but I just don't think he's a top 10 pick. He's more of a mid-first round area where I'd say he's between 13 and 18, give or take a couple. But I don't know, putting him at 10 is just personally a little too high for me. You know, I'd rather have Oliver Moore over him. Despite Oliver Moore playing on the second line, I think he's just an overall better player. And that's no diss to Gabe Perot. He might even go top 10. I might be completely wrong, but I would prefer Oliver Moore. But yeah, Bob McKenzie's list is usually pretty accurate, like I said, and the only two ones I kind of have a problem with is his 9th overall and 10th overall selections, with Zach Benson followed by Gabe Perot. Other than that, I could see it playing out just the way he listed it. Now, this video is not me saying that this will be the order. We're just taking a look at Bob McKenzie's list, specifically the top 10, and the only real way to see who gets selected this order is in 1 week on draft night. So if you're really interested in the draft, I suggest you go check out my own video on who I had listed for the top 16 of the first round. I will be looking to make a following video from picks 17 to 32. You could also go check out my video on Craig Button's top 10 list, in which had some very surprising picks. And if you did enjoy today's video, don't be afraid to hit that like button and maybe even consider subscribing. Now with that being said, I'll see you all next time. Take care.